In 2009, the mayor also said, to rezone a business park district to allow hotels or other residential commercial uses in the downtown and commercial districts would be a detriment to the community. It would also create the possibility of incompatible uses in close proximity, which defeats the purpose of separate industrial zoning. The mayor also said this is the oldest working fishing port in the US and must be preserved as a community. So with this in mind, we're talking about the possibility of new jobs. The possibility of new jobs means 100 rooms and 100 new jobs. So with a desk clerk, a concierge, some night staff, that means 100 extra staff. That's the most service room, because that means one staff person per bedroom. That's quite a fancy hotel. As a marine industrial person, I came here because the city, Sarah Garcia, said there was marine industrial space. Before my family moved here and before my company moved here, we were brought to all the marine industrial spaces that are available. Of those marine industrial spaces, none of them are for sale or for lease, and this has been for the past 2 years, to anyone wanting to bring marine industrial space.
About 60 seconds, okay?
Marine industrial space is extremely rare. The mayor is aware of it, and to lose even one piece of it places at risk these things. No marine industrial business will come into any industry which does not have space available, and where the possibility of those space value costs going skyrocketing will prevent them from ever expanding their businesses. Where one business that's being proposed at $75 million or $79 million, competing with one which guarantees an entrant of $80 million every year, it's choosing to kill the goose rather than gather the golden egg patiently year after year.
Just be careful when you hold the mic so we can hear.
Ann Malloy from Neptune's Harvest, Ocean Crest Seafood down the fort. I just want to bring up the same thing Nathaniel did. We have been actively seeking marine industrial land down the fort, somewhere in Gloucester for years, and there's one roadblock after another on every single property we've tried to purchase. So for everyone to say marine industrial is dead, that is not true. We're trying hard to expand our marine industrial business down the fort. It seems there's like an underlying belief that the zoning is going to change. And when we tried to buy the Bird's Eye building, you know, we went up to $2 million, which I think is a very reasonable amount to offer that building in the marine industrial, you know, price range. So we were outbid by a developer who, you have to believe, he didn't want us on that property. He outbid us to stop us from being there, and he bid a price that was, he just kept outbidding us every time we went up because he didn't want us there, and, you know, he had the feeling that it would get rezoned. Had he not, we'd have been in there right now, and this wouldn't be happening. We have, you know, looked at the, we talked to Sarah Garcia ourselves and tried to make a deal with the city to buy the land that is in the apron, the old Kookaroo property. We're still interested in that land. We were told at the beginning that they were more than willing to work with us with that, and they were going to get some brownfield money and try to clean it up. Last time I tried to follow up, I was told that was not the case. And now, and I said, can we go towards that? And I was told, let's wait and see. So this wait and see thing is a problem on the harbor and our waterfront, and if we don't admit as a city that, you know, we really don't want a marine industrial business, or if you do, then we need some support. We were brought out, I'm not even reading this, so we were brought out at the Maritime Summit. You know, the mayor and Sarah called me every day. They wanted me to go be a speaker. I was a keynote speaker at that Maritime Summit. People from all over the world said, wow, you're doing great things. The guy from San Diego that came in said, Mayor, use Neptune's Harvest as your poster child. Help them as much as you can, and that will lure other marine industrial businesses to here. And you can say, look how we help them. We can help you. I haven't heard from him since the summit. So Everybody really was saying, this is good, you can do things. And we are trying to grow. We have a lot of ideas up our sleeves. There's crab shell, there's seaweed, there's a million other things we want to do. We were actually forced to buy property down Cape Ann Industrial Park, which we're using for storage and bottling and things, but we can't use it to develop these new products because we need marine industrial land to do that. So this is what I wrote down. This is what rezoning means to me. I'm told this is about zoning, so we're not supposed to talk about anything else. I'm not sure what that means because I thought things we want to talk about, like traffic, noise, services, smells, economic impact, shadow studies, the puddle, would be necessary to discuss in order to make an educated decision on whether to rezone before or not. But since I'm not going to talk about that, I'm going to talk about zoning. Imagine you're at work one day. Someone comes up to you and says, hey, did you hear they're trying to rezone your neighborhood? They go on to explain, we're holding a meeting, so of course you go. After all, this will affect your community. When you get there, the city planner is there, and the community development director begins by showing you these drawings of your area. You're shocked to hear the city's already spent $55,000 of taxpayer money hiring out 2 firms to come up with plans, drawings, without ever consulting neighbors. What you see shocks you, because it looks absolutely nothing like your neighborhood. The drawing shows a huge fish plant. You can't believe your eyes. The city is trying to rezone your area that is owned residential into marine industrial to accommodate a big smelly fish plant. You knew the zoning was in place to protect you from conflicting uses. You bought there for that reason. You spent a lot of money on your house and years fixing it up. You're afraid it will change the very nature of your area. Once one fish company is allowed to build there, surely others will want to rezone their property for industrial use. After all, what's good for the goose? You even thought you'd buy the land next to you to expand so your kids would be able to live next to you. But the owners of that land won't sell to you because they feel they may be able to sell out to marine industrial for more money. You approach the city, who owns vacant land next to you, and although they seemed willing to sell you that property before, they now say, let's wait and see. The land may be too valuable to sell to you now. Of course you're outraged. Fish plants don't belong in residential zoning. You know there were a few on the outskirts of the neighborhood, but people who lived in those homes, worked in those plants for generations, and grew up there and were used to it. They never complained. But the higher-end, newer homes were there now, and surely they didn't want a fish plant there either. You couldn't believe the mayor was behind this and fully supporting the plan. She said we needed jobs and increased taxes. She said maybe if you form a neighborhood group, you'd be listened to. So you form an association, and it's easy because everyone in your neighborhood agrees it's a bad thing. You start going to planning board meetings. You write a speech. Even though you're extremely nervous and not a public speaker, you get up and read it, because after all, this is an important issue, and it will not only affect your area, but could be the start of a greater plan to change many other parts of town. I'm almost done. I've been here 5 years. Let me finish my letter.
I just wanted, everybody's got their chance, okay? So, you're 6 minutes in, okay?
So you work with the city planner to come to a compromise that would work for everyone. You find it impossible because it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. No matter how many ways you turn it, it just doesn't fit. After 4 months of planning and modification, the planning board approved recommendations to the city council by a vote of 6-1, even though there was fierce opposition. The person who voted against it wasn't reinstated to the board, as he learned in a letter from the mayor shortly after. Flashing forward, May 5th, 2009, about 1.5 years after this all began, the City Council votes 8-0 to withdraw your proposal. Your happiness is short-lived, however, because you realize it was not voted on because they felt any plan the councilors approved that night would be a significant departure from what they really wanted. We'd be sure to be back again. The Gloucester Times commented about there being nearly a chair, and it was because we knew it wasn't over. This is a brief summary. I'm leaving many long and painful things out. So you and your family decide they will buy the property in question and fully use it without rezoning. Unfortunately, you're outbid by a developer with deeper pockets. Because, all right, I'll skip forward. Sure enough, rezoning take 2 begins. The saga continues. Go through another series of long meetings. Try to turn that square peg a few different directions, but still it does not fit in the round hole. The conflicted uses still don't fit in your area. You realize now why zoning was created in the first place, to stop things from happening. In a similar fashion to the first attempt, the plans are pulled, this time by the developer because it's gotten hacked up too much in an attempt to help it fit. That is no longer the developer's liking, so I guess we won. You won again. What happens next is beyond your belief. The property is sold for 3 times its value to a man with $1.8 billion. Then you find out he's donated $500,000 over the next 10 years to build a football stadium for the high school. Sure, you want to check. Well, I'm almost done. But you feel you must try to protect all you believe in and worked your whole life for. As the rezoning goes on the table the 3rd time, you write a letter to the editor to help others understand what happened. And you know what you are now? You're an obstructionist. You're anti-jobs. You're anti-progress, anti-new taxes, anti-change, someone who just always says no to everything. And if you're really lucky, the editor of the paper will write an entire editorial publicly bashing you by name. Your job, your family, your reputation, your health will have suffered greatly. A hotel doesn't belong next to a fish plant any more than fish plants belong in residential neighborhoods. These 2 types of land uses are simply incompatible, which is why we have zoning in the first place. This is what zoning means to me.
Before you start, I'd like folks to please respect the 5 minutes, okay? I know this is an emotionally charged issue. You've got a lot of folks who wanted to speak, and I just, need to stay on point in 5 minutes, okay? Just your name and address for the record.
My name is Charlie Bianchini. I'm a resident of 51 Fort Square. I grew up in Lanesville. The question we are trying to answer tonight is not whether or not to have a hotel downtown. I am in favor of that. The question is whether or not to rezone 33 and 47 Commercial Street. I am here tonight because I would like to clear up some misunderstandings that some people in Gloucester might have about the business that exists down the fort. Many believe that the fishing industry is dead or dying, and though that may be true in some cases, the marine industrial business down the fort is actually thriving. I took a survey that asked businesses in the fort, 1, how much gross revenue they make, 2, how many people they employ, and 3, how many of those employers are from Gloucester. Out of 5 businesses, approximately $77.8 million in gross revenue. Out of 3 businesses, 73 people were employed. Of those 73, 66 are employed from Gloucester. There are at least 3 businesses that didn't respond in time for this meeting. So our estimate of $80 million might be cutting it low. From these figures, we can see that there is a significant amount of money still being made in the fort, and these figures are substantial enough that we should not run the risk of threatening them. Not only that, but I have spoken to or heard from at least 5 different MI businesses in Gloucester who want to establish and or expand Neptune's Harvest, Mortellaro Lobster, World Stove, Intershell, and a green boat building initiative that just lost its space at the Heritage Center to be able to increase visitor capacity. Mayor Kirk told me in a meeting that the way to keep residential taxes down is to invest in industry. I am not saying that a downtown hotel is a bad thing. What I am saying is that there are better places for it. I am not saying I don't want change. I am saying a hotel at the Birdseye site is the wrong change. Wikipedia defines zoning as such. Quote, the primary purpose of zoning is to segregate uses that are thought to be incompatible. In practice, zoning is used to prevent new development from interfering with existing residents or businesses and to preserve the character of a community, end quote. I live in the fort, and I complain about the stink and the traffic and the noise, but not publicly, because I have respect for the businesses there that give good, high-paying jobs to Gloucester workers. However, people who don't understand what is going on there will complain. Either the hotel will have to relocate because no one will want to stay in a noisy, smelly place, or the businesses will have to relocate because of the complaints. Of the businesses wanting to expand, Many of them have been denied this opportunity because of speculation that the zoning will change to residential or hotel overlay. When there has been this kind of development in other cities and towns, the industrial businesses who employ significant numbers of workers are unfortunately the ones that get put out of business. This is the reason why hotel and marine industrial zonings are not compatible with each other, and why the zoning was put in place years ago in a community effort to protect not only the businesses that are already there, but also the business coming in. I don't think Beauport LLC would want to put a hotel in a place where the neighbors will unintentionally bother the visitors and where conflict will arise. There are plenty of places that are suitable for a downtown hotel that put visitors right on Main Street, right in front of Main Street businesses, and these places do not have to be rezoned, nor will they be in direct conflict with the businesses around them. There are a multitude of uses to which Beauport could put in the bird's eye under the current marine industrial zoning.
30 seconds, okay.
There are only two things that Beauport wants to do that are incompatible: residential and hotel. Marine industrial allows for anything else to be done, pretty much, except residential and hotel. Beauport LLC knew that they were buying a marine industrial property. If they had wanted to build a hotel, they could have gone elsewhere. The city has spent good tax dollars on city plans and harbor plans and designated port area plans that all stress the importance of helping marine industrial business. How can we, as a city, as a community, grant a zoning ordinance that is not in accordance with our city plans? Once you rezone, there is no going back.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne London, and I am a resident at 11 Beach Road in Gloucester. I am obviously speaking in opposition to the hotel overlay. I am speaking not only as a resident of Gloucester for these past 11 years, but also as someone with over 20 years' experience in the tourism industry. I owned and managed a reservation service for bed and breakfast, small inns, and vacation rentals, bringing guests here to stay in Gloucester and Cape Ann and elsewhere in coastal Massachusetts. As such, I understand and believe I am qualified to comment on why tourists want to come to Gloucester, return here year after year, generation after generation, and where they want to stay. Like everyone else or many other people tonight, I do believe that we need a hotel in Gloucester. There is a definite need for a full-service, year-round business class hotel for business travelers to help grow our local economy and keep business travelers here in Gloucester. But it does not have to be built in the Fort area with its incompatibility to the marine industry that already exists there. And besides, there are already 2 permitted hotels in Gloucester. They do not exist, but there are 2 already permitted opportunities for hotels in Gloucester. And having a full-service business class hotel is very, very different from the myth that such a hotel will bring in tourists. If you are at all honest with yourselves, you know that tourists do not come here in the winter months, and I know from talking with really literally over thousands of them over the past 20 years, they do not come to stay in a fancy hotel. They want to be close to Good Harbor Beach or Wingershik, except for Fiesta in June. They come to stay because they know that Gloucester is a very special place and one of the few remaining authentic seaports and gateways to the ocean on the East Coast. We ought to support that heritage. And with regard to supporting that heritage, I encourage you all to read and comment on the recently released draft from the Maritime Summit held right here in Gloucester last November 2011. The summit explored the potential for the revitalization of Gloucester's harbor. The report offered a vision for Gloucester's future that focuses on a port economy and proposed new technologies and research areas that will not diminish the maritime character of Cape Ann, that builds on the fishing industry but does not replace it, and that recognizes that what already exists here in Gloucester has the potential to carry us into the future through development of innovative and sustainable marine industries. With his purchase of the Bird's Eye property, Jim Davis can play a huge role in this development. He has been approached by a group of Gloucester citizens to come to speak about the uses of the Bird's Eye property that would be compatible with the marine industrial area without changing the zoning. We are hopeful he will respond. I want to address my closing remarks to the City Council and the Planning Board members. I am happy to hear that you will be putting on your very best filters and your very best analytical skills as you deliberate and try to separate fact from fiction and come to a decision. As our public servants, whether elected or appointed, we have the right to expect that you represent and protect the best interests of all the citizens of Gloucester equally. I challenge you to make sure that those of us who have limited power and resources know that our voices have not only been heard, but responded to on an equal footing, as are the voices and the plans of the rich, powerful, and well-connected. I further implore you all to help foster an environment of mediation where compromise, reason, and respect can take precedent over mistrust and divisiveness, and where reasonable people can reasonably disagree without putting each other in the enemy camp. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight as my name is Angela Sanfilippo, and I'm here to represent the Gloucester Fisherman's Wife Association. I'm its president. I've been the president for the last 33 years. I had made a commitment to myself not to come and speak to you about this issue. We had a meeting of the board. We wrote a letter that one of the old members of the Fisherman's Wife was going to come and read it. She's not well tonight, but at the same time, today, I spent a day in Boston at the seafood show. And I saw what I saw. What I saw was frozen fish and farmed fish. That's what the world is selling. And with that, on my drive back, I said, I'm going to go to the meeting. I'm not going to accept what I've been told, that this is a done deal, that everybody's been bought. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to go and look these people in their face, as we've known each other for a long time. A hotel downtown is very much needed, but downtown on Main Street. This is why when Councilor Toby was a mayor, we worked with him to get rid of the DPA across the street on Rogers Street, with the hope that somebody will build a hotel over there. It never came, because there was no need. Tonight is very sad to listen to people saying that the fishing industry is dead. It's not what was in the 40s. In the 40s, we had World War II. Nobody was fishing. Today, the fishing industry is still alive and well. This is why the Gloucester Fisherman's Wife came together in 1969, right after urban renewal. They saw their waterfront disappear, and they wanted to build a co-op, where today stands the auction. They saw cement wall go up on the harbor for freezers that could have been built in industrial parks. This organization has done more for the city of Gloucester than anybody else. I'm not going to read my resume like a lot of people have. There is no need for it. We are here tonight to tell you this: be careful. We've been known as the city of the Captain Courageous, the city of the perfect storm. I hope we don't become the city of the tourist. Thank you very much.
Susanna Altenburger, 66 Atlantic Street, West Gloucester. I'm here in a peculiar position to find myself as the possibly oldest marine industrial venture in the city at the moment. My late husband started his design work, designing fishing boats, pleasure boats, in 1952. That's 60 years. And indeed, I speak to you, yes, of course so. We heard quite a bit about the history of hotel building in Gloucester. I understand that Magnolia was a really happening place in the age of steam locomotives and the AM radio spectrum. One thing that we've noticed, we don't have any more hotels in town. Did anybody outlaw hotels by zoning code? I don't believe it happened. So hotels have come and gone. Tourism has cycled. One thing has remained standing, which is interestingly on this occasion, is the Birdseye building, because it was once known to be the Cunningham and Thompson building. No relations to the Cunningham of our legal team here, but the Cunningham and the middle name of my late husband, Philip Cunningham Bolger. One of his forefathers was running a fleet of 25 to 30 schooners out of Harbour Cove, and across the street had administration and processing, two piers on Harbour Coach for the fleet. So we've had this property straddling both sides of Commercial Street in marine industrial duty starting about 130 years ago. Unlike some hotels we heard and we saw disappear, some of them as tragic insurance cases, by the way. We look down now at that road of Commercial Street of a row of very successful businesses. Some of them are Homeland Security certified, some folks are drawing on the latest science, some folks are doing high-end patent-based manipulations of the resource as we catch it in various states. They are aiming at, particularly Neptune's Harvest, they're aiming at having no waste left over by the time they're done. Modelaros is very successful. Scott Memhard over at the ice factory has diversified to simply stay around because he knows how important this line of work is. That is a cluster of ingenuity, a cluster of can-do, of entrepreneurialism that you wish you could generate as any city planner or city planning board. And you cannot do it by yourself. What those folks are doing is way more valuable than some promises of maybe a hotel that might maybe last as long as the Birdseye building has to this day, or it might not. Now we hear ugly stories about properties being made offers on all over the fort. Some offers, some folks cannot refuse apparently. That's spooky enough, but what it seems to be happening is that maybe the whole fort is going to go more or less the way it seems to be going, which will sooner or later, when all the abutters to the commercial properties, when all the abutters are more or less in one hand, they will be the next ones to go because we complains about noise, smell, 24 hours a day activities, ship engines idling all night long. It'll be inevitable. It's happened in other cities. And so we're looking forward to some rather ugly development. It's not good neighborhood spirit if you show up and say, I want it my way, and whatever you guys are doing, you figure, and maybe you'll survive, maybe you won't.
About 90 seconds, okay. So
Indeed, 90 seconds. Now, all this, of course, stands in stark contrast with a report we've all heard of, downloaded from the community development website about the future of Gloucester. The blue economy, low-carbon boat building, advanced biotechnical, biochemical processes, which is indeed what the future is. All the high-end experts that talked to us over the years, for the last 12 years we've talked about this, 12 years now, since Gloucester 2000, and before then, of course. And in here, indeed, Anne Malloy gets praised And within the next couple of days or weeks, she finds herself more or less regulatorily under a severe squeeze that she may not actually make it long term, because once there's a hotel across the street, she won't be rattling with her fork trucks all over Commercial Street. That's going to stop sooner or later. So to wrap this up, what this does for our city is makes us look fairly strange, if not outright stupid. On one hand, we propose the blue economy, and on the other hand, we're knocking our economic entities who've proven their value, who've been good corporate citizens, we knock them in kneecaps, if not worse, and which makes us as city planners, individually as well as collectively, highly unreliable folks to deal with if you're a state, a federal agency, or a private funder of various proposals, because nobody knows what you folks will be up to. Because he may just flip on that zoning again, and a gentleman who spoke so eloquently earlier, there's nothing one can say beyond what he's already said. It makes us look worse than any pregnant teenagers. It makes us look worse than any other nasty jokes. And it does do that. Thank you.
My name is Ann Mulcahy. I live at 55 Fort Square. I've been a resident there for 27 years, and I was born in the fort. So I was a previous city council last term, and as one of my jobs, knowing all this was going to happen again, I started doing some research, and the major part of my research was done on the traffic. And I asked the Traffic Commission, Bob Ryan, who is here tonight, to use the Jamar, which is a state box that you put on the pole, and it tracks your traffic inside and out. And I have given this report to Sherry DeLorenzo so she knows about it. We tracked for 1 week. Now this was not including all the road races, the Fiesta, all the different things that go on down in the area. This does not include any of those cars or pedestrian traffic. There were 20, and there's only a percentage of people who know this, 20,000 vehicles go in and out of the fort every day. Nobody knows this. We are a cul-de-sac. One way in, one way out with a little tiny circle. Many people wonder why we are so against having more traffic coming in. Just between the beginning of Commercial Street and the Chamber of Commerce, 5,000 cars. And this is a registered statement from the Jamar that the state puts out. That we did this traffic study 2 weeks, not together, 1 week, 1 month, and 1 week another. And so the important thing is adding more traffic. You have trucks that go into the auctions in the morning, 6 o'clock. They're out of there by 7. They come back into the fort. Now they've left the fort. Now they're coming back into the fort, unload or reload other fish. They have to be out to Boston by 8 or 9 o'clock. They have to. They can't be sitting in traffic for 45 minutes with ice melting on their trucks. They have to be at airports. Mortallaro has to fly his lobsters out sometimes. They have to be at the airport at certain times. What's going to happen with all this construction down here? I don't understand it. And not only that, this diagram here tells me that they don't understand it, because 40-mile-an-hour wind, dead high tide, the water goes right through the parking lot onto Commercial Street. And if you drive down Commercial Street, you'll see the sand from the last storm and the last few storms that we've had. Now, you know, when you take that building down, there's not going to be any buffer. They're going to have to build a seawall while they're construction. So it's not going to be an easy thing to do to start with, but the problems that are going to cause us as neighbors and industry is just going to be enormous, because the fort's going to be flooded. You won't be able to get emergency vehicles in. We have a 90-year-old lady, and we all take care of her. We all watch out for her. She lives right there in the gray house. As you come down Commercial Street, you're looking right at her house. She's 90 years old. God love her, she gets around. But how is she going to deal with all of this, the construction and all of this stuff that's going on? And, you know, I just really don't understand how they can put this in there. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Sherry. I do. I have no problem with her, and I have no problem with a hotel, but not in the fort. It just is not. It's too problematic. Thank you.
Leonard McCollum, Neptune's Harvest, 88 Commercial Street. This is a de facto rezoning of the waterfront, and it's happening building by building. If Birdseye falls, this will create a domino effect, and it could lead Gloucester down a very slippery rezoning slope. Mr. Davis currently owns Birdseye, the old New England Marine Building, and artist Lucette White's former art studio. He will purchase the Commerce Building and North Atlantic if this overlay is approved. This encourages other landowners in the DPA and Marine Industrial Zoned area to hold on to their land in hopes of rezoning and the big money that can be made. It encourages them to ask for so much money for their property that no marine industrial business can be attracted. Landowners will tell us they have no option but to turn it into residential units. By introducing residential units onto the block, it sets the stage for conflict over traffic, pedestrians, trucks, noise, smells, water and sewer needs, and everything else that can arise when there are different types of uses. It changes the market, and it fuels real estate speculation. Developers and speculators up and down both coasts are gobbling up marine industrial land and have been for the last 10 years. These zoning changes are short-sighted. Affordable marine industrial land is increasingly hard to find. Due to this rampant speculation, Providence, Rhode Island, Baltimore, Maryland, and states like Florida and Maine have all taken proactive steps to stop the growth of incompatible condo and hotel uses along their industrial working waterfronts. Baltimore extended its maritime industrial zoning overlay district protected area. Portland declined a proposed change that would have weakened their working waterfront protection regulations. Public funding was approved by Maine voters on November 2005 ballot for the Land for Maine's Future program that provides funds to purchase development rights from waterfront property owners. The new mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, dropped the attempt of previous mayors to rezone the Allens Ave area for extensive mixed use. City officials there now plan to add only office development to the port area. Organizations up and down the coast, like the Providence Working Waterfront Alliance and the Metropolitan Waterfront Alliance in New York, are working to prevent the gentrification of the working waterfront. What do they all know that some officials in Gloucester do not? They clearly understand the importance of industrial jobs and a port infrastructure to the future and how this can be a significant competitive advantage over landlocked cities. There are hundreds of cities and towns like Marblehead and Newburyport up and down the East Coast. But there's only one oldest seaport in the nation, and that's Gloucester. Tourists come here to see the working waterfront and eat the seafood, not sleep next to it and smell it. A hotel, potentially condos, if the hotel fails and a special permit is granted, may increase the city's property tax revenues, providing there is no TIF. But it will come at the expense of existing hotels, successful tax-paying marine industrial businesses with good blue-collar jobs, the potential to attract new marine industrial development, and a regional economic resource that can never be rebuilt. Thank you.
Only 5 minutes of stuff there, right, Senator?
That's a perfect opening, Rick. So I'm Sunny Robinson. This is, and I live at 20 Harvard Street. And yes, I would really like to reread you the entire 2001 Community Development Plan and the May 2011 Harbor Economic Development Plan, because I am sure if I did, you would arrive at the same conclusion that I have come to, which is that you are compelled to vote down this zoning request because it conflicts with the planning that we've been doing in this city for 12 years. Zoning and planning are a function to protect the vital land uses of a community, and that's what these two documents address. Dan Hill started out by quoting a piece that I want to go back to from the May 2011 Harbor Economic Development Plan. Now, this is a plan that I participated in all phases of, and while I don't agree with everything in the plan, I strongly support the 3 arms of economic development that this plan speaks of. But each in their own place, and not setting up conflicting uses between them, and not making the same pieces of vital marine industrial property compete with the visitor-based issues. In the section of talking about a downtown hotel, as Mr. Hill pointed out, your plan, this city's plan, says the hotel should be located adjacent to, but outside the DPA and Marine Industrial District. If you approve this zoning request, you are not acting in the public interest. You are acting contrary to your own very vital plan. Furthermore, you would be acting contrary to the work that many people in this community have been pursuing. We have recently had the Maritime Summit. We have the Mount Auburn report, the Harbor Economic Development report. We have a Maritime Executive E-Board working on maritime development possibilities. We have a Fisheries Commission. We have the recommendation in the Harbor Economic Development Plan that we hire a full-time economic development person to help move all these issues forward. We had just this past week at the Planning and Development Committee a discussion with the EDIC present, urging an inventory of underutilized industrial development so that we can move that forward. So, all of those factors, past planning, future planning, I believe require you as the planning board and the city council to in fact preserve and strengthen the marine industrial section of the city that we have. This is not a hearing about a hotel. It's a hearing about the appropriateness of zoning and whether the applicant has made any case for public benefit by rezoning of this marine industrial property. And I submit to you, he has not, and you need to do your due diligence, review this, and in fact, vote it down so we can get on with the long, hard task of finding marine industrial people to come in, and as Ocean Crest wanted to move forward this property and move forward the property at I-4C2. Many of us have worked for many years longer than my dozen years to try to help get us to this point. I want to end with just a couple of quick quotes from the 2001 Community Development Plan. Page 19. The city should ensure that industrial park space is reserved for industrial, commercial, non-residential use, maintaining the space and infrastructure for that use, thereby reducing the need to search for new space. Gloucester's commercial harbor and waterfront are the foundation of its history, economy, and cultures. Gloucester's unique character relies on an enjoyable, accessible, and productive harbor and waterfront. Critical to the future of these resources is responsible use and development. Responsible use and development requires you, I believe, to deny this zoning request. Thank you.
So folks, we're about 9:45. We will need to take a procedural step at 10 o'clock to extend the meeting past our scheduled time period. So please understand that we will certainly want to get everybody heard. So again, if there's things that you've heard this evening that you want to parse, use the small one. There you go. So if you just keep your topics to new information, we'll be able to get everybody in.
Do you not have the option for extending the hearing?
Beg your pardon?
Do you not have an option for extending the
We do.
hearing?
I'm just saying at 10 o'clock we're
I
going to
understand.
exercise that. Thank you.
My name is Ann Rhinelander. I live on 16 Pine Street.
Speak a little bit so we can hear you.
I live on 16 Pine Street.
Perfect.
Ann Rhinelander. And I have little exposure, other than Stonington, Connecticut, to fishing and fisheries, etc. But I have had extensive involvement in planning, locally and regionally. And there were elements of the aggressiveness and absoluteness of this process which made me think it might be an interesting subject of investigation. Beyond that, some of the issues in this case are, yes, we do need it. We need a hotel. And to Sherry DiLorenzo's credit, the cruise port is palatial, absolutely beautiful. However, to ship people out of town for housing that's sufficient for their needs is cavalier and unproductive. With her talent, her caring, her capabilities, she could have a side business of shoring up and advancing the housing that does exist here, some of which is extraordinarily rich, wonderful, and undercapitalized. I had hoped Mr. Davis would be present. It would be a pleasure to meet him, since he has so much influence and interest here. The thing that surprised me is I picked up a nursing uniform catalog recently and found New Balance nursing uniforms. So the man has a great capability for diversification and making money. And he's just bought a $6 million piece of property, which he doesn't have to be stuck with. He could, I've been kicking myself for not buying Apple stock sooner. He's in a position to capitalize and benefit enormously from a visionary industry right in his backyard. The Bird's Eye factory is iconic. It should be preserved because no one in this country hasn't been touched by the product of that, the work there. And we're on the eve of a green boat building event that is going to be very, very beneficial monetarily. There is no precedent for a hotel on that beach. And why this community has to be affected more than the owner of the tavern is illegitimate. I knew I'd forget what I was going to talk about, but there's no excuse for taking this as is. If you will consider subsequent proposals and take in the monetary value, you're sitting on a gold mine, and try to stifle it and shut it up and close it off. Steve Jobs was not easy to deal with. Some of the people here on the eve of entrepreneurial genius deserve your consideration, if not your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Justin Dimitri, 1A Clairview Ave, but I grew up down the fort on Beach Court. And I just want to quickly mention, the one part of common ground that I can see here between the two sides is we want to grow marine industrial business in Gloucester. Yet it makes no sense to me that you can make that statement and yet give up a huge piece of marine industrial zoning for something that's not related to this whatsoever, and it's not a good fit down that neighborhood. On another note, to reference back to earlier in this meeting, when, with all respect to Mr. Gilson, what he was describing in the 40s and 50s with the redfish boom was nothing more than a gold rush. And what we're being sold right now is the new gold rush. And when I was in school, I had a very great history teacher who put it succinctly. When we're dealing with gold rushes, it's not the ones who dig for gold that make the money. It's the ones who sell the shovels. Thank you.
Patty Page, 3 Tidal Cove Way, Gloucester. I need to dispel one myth first that's come up here. The number of commercial vessels, and particularly fishing vessels, that you have in your port. I've cataloged them. There's 240 commercial vessels, tugboats, schooners, whale watchers. As Sherry stated already, she docks 8 vessels. If you believe the number is 75, that would be over 10% docked just at her place alone. I think you can visually see that that might be not the case. I'd like to speak on employment. A typical company of 30 employees, seven positions of managers, 1 administrative assistant, 11 to 20 plant crew workers, and 2 high school students. All managers receive 3 weeks paid vacation. 4 managers have vehicles, company vehicles, which include paid gas cards. There's an administrative assistant. There's 2 high school students that are employed solely to encourage youth employment on the working waterfront. There's 11 to 20 employees in the plant that receive 2 weeks paid vacation, including a 1-week buyback option. The employee benefits are as follows. All positions are full-time status with all benefits paid. The only part-time positions which do not qualify for benefits are those offered to those high school students. 401k and yearly company matching funds offered to all employees, including plant crew. Health insurance covered 95%. AFLAC is offered. End-of-year cash incentive bonuses ranging from several $100s to several $1,000s. Christmas bonus package, they talked about employment. I'd like to talk about employment too. Company paid training. All employees are screened and certified through Federal Homeland Security, TSA Security, which is Transportation of Security Administration. Paid overtime, advanced wage compensation without interest. Essential work is provided. Entry-level pay scale starts at 25% above minimum wage. All employees reside in Gloucester with the exception of 2 managers that commute. Long-term retention of employees. All employees have been with the company for 7 years. Where are these job opportunities today? Are they found in the food and beverage sector? Are they found in the hospitality sector? This is the current employment model of the marine industrial sector. From top-level managers, including plant crew positions, competitive wages and benefits are available. These positions do not depend on the economic climate of the visitor base. These positions are not dependent on commission-type pay scale model. This type of employment provides stable, reliable income. With regard to the maximum height of 75 feet, please deliberate on the merits of increasing the building heights over the current maximum allowed of 40 feet in a marine industrial zone. By changing this critical dimensional component, the entire skyline of the area will be compromised. Not only will it serve to eradicate any existing view corridor from the interior of the downtown area, but it will also set a precedent for the entire skyline of the area. The proposed building height will serve to devalue properties on the opposite side of Commercial Street by compromising the length of daylight which is now available, essentially casting long shadows onto those buildings and into Harbor Cove. Increasing building height at your lowest point of elevation is a mistake and contrary to urban planning precepts. Additionally, please also consider why there are two property addresses owned by separate individuals included in this hotel overlay development. HOD?
About 50 seconds, okay?
I'm almost done. What's the implication of that? Should we expect two separate hotels? Certainly, if the HOD is approved, the 75-foot dimensional requirement will then afford both property owners the same dubious distinction of being able to increase in height accordingly. I appreciate your careful deliberation in this matter of community concern.
Just through the chair. That's fine. So at this point, it's about 5 minutes to 10. So we'll take one more presentation, then we're going to need to do a little housekeeping. So.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes. Excuse me. I just felt moved to talk.
Name and address for the
record. My name is Alex Thomas. I live at 7 Albion Court in Gloucester and Bayview.
Speak a little bit more clearly so Pauline can hear you. Thank you.
7 Albion Court in Bayview in Gloucester. I just felt moved to speak because I'm having a nightmare of my old economics 101 teacher. And he gave a lecture on the effect of government and wealth. And he broke it down into two pathways. And on one, he said the government can encourage sharing wealth. And under all that categories, he had things like TIFs or tax breaks. The other thing he put down is encouraging service industry. And he said he did admit that was a little controversial because you get the initial jobs increase by like building a stadium, building a casino, building a hotel. But once all that's done, the jobs that are left do not create wealth. The middle class, as he described it, moves laterally. There's movement, but nobody's getting richer. The people that are actually inside every day working, their income moves laterally. The other option is to create wealth. And since this lecture was at the University of Wisconsin, where I went to school, he used Milwaukee, my hometown, and he said, like a farmer who buys a bushel of corn for $7, but plants it, it's still worth $7, but now he's got 10,000 bushels. That's how a farmer creates wealth, and government policy can assist that. The same thing, he said, goes for manufacturing and extraction industries, like timber, mining, and fisheries. I'm asking you to take that pathway of assisting to create wealth, because when you create wealth, you get those jobs where the middle class continues to progress up. The incomes progress up, and the jobs remain. Thank you.
That's what we're discussing, folks, okay? So 30 minutes? I think so. It's going to be about 30 minutes. So folks, we're going to take a vote. Our procedures state that we're not to run past 10 o'clock because that's what our schedule is. We do have a procedure that allows us to accept the motion to extend for such time that we see fit to finish at least this portion of the public comment. So I would accept the motion to extend to the hour of 10:30 so we can get the rest of the folks that are standing up that want to make a comment to at least get these folks heard this evening. So moved. Thank you. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. We're going to... Thank you. But understand we got 30 minutes here, and I want to use the time as most effective as we can, okay? So, and if you can keep it down, folks, because we certainly have some important testimony to be heard. So thank you.
Thank you for extending the time.
Yeah, just use the small one, okay?
Thank you for extending the time. My name is Rosalind Frontera, and I live on Beacon Street. And Beacon Street is actually a part of the Fort community. I hail from the Fort, fourth generation ethnically cleansed from the Fort, where businesses had to be stripped for the purpose of progress and change. And I haven't seen that my whole life long. I'm looking for Gloucester to put forth a really good plan for our future, and it has to include marine innovation. Instead of engaging in all of the arguments, I'm just going to ask us all to try to find a win-win situation for Gloucester, for our beloved Gloucester, and a can-do attitude. That particular type of plan is on your watch, and it's a plan of legacy at this point. It's a make or break. There's no reason why Sherry can't have a hotel. She's identified a need. My inheritance was stripped of me, but not my identity. I left. I went to the Port of Seattle, two ancient ports of Palermo and Cadiz, Spain, Pensacola, Long Beach. I've seen it all over the world. When I worked for Bill Gates, and he moved into my neighborhood, I had to move out. Waterfront property went from $100 a square foot to $1,000 a square foot overnight. And that was during the second coming of the gold rush. I just want to point out, I've been doing a lot of research and work following the water issues in Gloucester over the last 10 years. And we still have some serious CSO infrastructure work to be done down the Fort in particular. We have the big bubble that came about last week. And I just want to reiterate the fact that if we manage to, I know that business owners are hurting and so aren't residents of this community, but if we think we're hurting now with these increased tax rates on water and sewer alone, I can't even begin to tell you what's been happening all over the world with a privatized water system. And Sherry, are you still renting to Suez down at the cruise port? Okay. Suez is the parent company of United Water, which ran our water system into the ground. We are currently suing them. The city of Gloucester is suing them for doing that. So you have an awesome responsibility. We not only have Suez here off our port and at the cruise port, we have Veolia managing our water supply, two of the largest multinational corporations in the world, and they're right here. Some countries have two multinational corporations. Gloucester is so special. We are so poised. And I ask you, what are we poised for? Are we going to be poised for turning into a terminal? Are we going to be poised to prepare for our future? And I would like to dub MI Marine Innovation, because ever since I've been a listening post panelist, I've seen the continued obstruction of the opportunities, the grand opportunities that we have. We really need to get our act together as a city and present to the world like we did when we used to feed the world. We have the means, we have the talent, we have the resources, and I would hope that we have the brains on this board and with the city council to really come up with a can-do plan so we can have both. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose.
Denise Foley, Western Avenue.
Need to be holding on to the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Denise Foley, and I live on Western Avenue. I represent a business downtown on Main Street called Tiny Island Beach Glass, a business that was built in honor of the fort and the fishing industry. And I see a lot of people every day, during the summer especially. They talk about the fort, they talk about how they've never been to such an authentic place. And I really, really hope you think about this before you rezone. Now, a couple of things I want to present to you. I have our petition against the rezoning. I'd like to read it to you. It's, we, the undersigned, oppose the conversion of the property commonly referred to as the Bird's Eye and its adjacent lands to an overlay district allowing residential use. This includes opposition to the current proposed overlay district or any zoning proposal or any specific project application for said properties, which includes, adds, or grants the following uses by right or any special permit for hotel, motel, condominiums, or any other residential use as described under the Gloucester zoning ordinances 231. We enter into this petition in the belief that these uses, A, conflict with the working harbor and related businesses across Commercial Street, B, conflict with the years of planning that have brought us to this point in time in which we have a harbor economic development plan that ought to be supported and not undermined. C, risk undermining the recent efforts of the Maritime Summit, whose recommendations are not yet complete, or they weren't at the time. And D, risk undermining the Maritime Economic Development Board that is just starting to work towards further marine industrial development. We also believe that the city needs more commercial and industrial space to make our community and harbor more successful. Furthermore, we support a downtown hotel, but believe such a hotel ought to be in the heart of downtown, where its economic benefit can support all downtown businesses and not on the edge of town where it risks being an isolated beach enclave. Do I hand this to you? Okay. In that petition, there is over 525 resident signatures, and we've actually gone out and reached out to non-residents who love to visit Gloucester. And we've got over 380 signatures of people begging not to rezone the Fort area. This is America's oldest and most historic seaport. That's what people come here for. I've worked in a lot of the different hotels in town over the years, and my latest gig was at a hotel on the back shore. Now, I may be the only person that's ever sent people down to Pavilion Beach from a hotel on the back shore, because the people that have stayed in Gloucester over and over, but came to the place I was working at, they would say to me, I cannot believe the authenticity of that area. Nobody's ever sent us down there. We will be back. We want to come back for that. So that's one thing. When I go away, it's not very often. It's usually during the winter time. Try to get a timeshare or a hotel up in the mountains. You can't because it's ski area. Down the Cape on the beach, plenty of options. I just got off the phone yesterday with a lady who runs Smuggler's Cove Hotel and Timeshare down in South Yarmouth. She says that their business slows in November, and with the exception of Thanksgiving. They are closed through January, and they are basically dead until the end of March, with the exception of different events that go on if they have a special event.
About 30 seconds.
Okay. I went down there myself, and beautiful beach, bigger beach than Pavilion Beach. Beautiful and glass-cased pool right on the beach so that you could feel like you were in the water in the ocean while you were in the pool. We had the whole place to ourselves. We could pick any time to go, and I'm really worried that if we rezone that one spot and take away that one piece of Gloucester that is such a diamond in the rough, people are telling me they don't want to come. I have just a couple quick things to say.
Over time right now, okay, so if you can.
I've done 5 minutes already?
Yeah, so you got 15 seconds in the
Okay.
closing thought.
Let's see. One of the comments from an out-of-towner says, let's see. This is from John Temple from Belgium. I stayed with Olson during the first days of 1966, and on arrival was immediately given a tour of the view from every window, each view precious to him. He warned me this day might come, and so it has. He did so much to try and save our sights in Gloucester. Think of the loss. When do poppies bloom, I asked myself, stopping again to look into Mrs. Frontero's yard, besides her house on this side from Bird's Eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's plenty more to read in there. I'm sorry?
So you can submit whatever you like through the city clerk's office, it'll be for public record.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laurel Tarantino, 26 Fort Square, and I'm liable to faint at any second because I suffer from social phobia. Two quick things. I got 4 pages, not going to read it.
Thank you.
My daughter, since she was little, what are you going to be when you grow up? Marine biologist. She's 14 now. She's still pursuing that. My fear with the rezoning is a domino effect. I think there's stuff that we're just not seeing. Well, some people aren't seeing. And if this, she goes to school, she goes to MIT, she gets that degree, whatever she needs, she can come home and work in her own backyard. How wonderful for her. But if this domino effect takes place like I think it will, if the zoning goes through, she's not going to have that opportunity. And the other thing I wanted to say was the news the other day, there was another woman interviewed, and she thought it'd be great to have a hotel on the fort so she could come to the beach and swim and then walk into town and go to a restaurant. Well, I've been doing that for 50 years. Well, not when I was little, but the past 20 years. I go to that beach, I walk into town, I go to Jalapenos, I shop in the stores, and I forget one more point I wanted to make. Yeah, you really don't need a hotel to swim at Pavilion Beach. Never had. Sorry, I'm nervous.
That's all right. Thank you. My name is Richard Hersey. Just into the microphone, please, sir.
Richard Hersey, 650 Essex Ave. I'll just read from my remarks because the time is late. I'm the guy that donated the lumber used by Tiger Marston to build the new greasy pole. And I thank you for your volunteer efforts on behalf of our city. I speak tonight for law and order and fairness and sticking to a plan. The petitioner before you is asking for a change of the MI zone, a classification that has been established for many years and is in place to offer protection and security to the marine-based businesses that inhabit the fort. The onus is upon the petitioner to explain why such a severe modification of the local zoning law is beneficial to the area and to the community. That it would be beneficial to the petitioner is not in doubt. The task before us all here tonight is to clarify how the proposed change benefits everyone else. The appointed planning board and the elected city council have the duty, the fiduciary responsibility, to examine the proposed zoning change through the lens of the community's well-being. Many reasonable people disagree that a working fishing port with the accompanying sights, sounds, and smells is an ideal setting for a tourist-oriented waterfront hotel. The proposed hotel overlay district would invite into this congested mixed-use district a conflicting use. The petitioner, Beauport Gloucester, is taking a very narrow view of where to integrate their interests within the established community of Gloucester. There are, after all, underutilized sites along Main and Rogers Streets that might be better suited. I myself find the acquisition and monopolizing of multiple properties and the conversion of a marine industrial site into a hotel complex goes against Gloucester's interest as a diversified, successful community. In addition to the local zoning law, the official harbor plan in 2009, recently reauthorized by the city, and the official community development plan in 2001, encouraged preservation of the marine industrial district, preservation of the marine industrial character of this harbor, and speak against harborfront hotels. Even the Community Values Summary Report of the Mayor's 2008 listening post reads, point, ensure that harbor development respects the heritage of Gloucester. Subpoint, plan for compatibility with traditional fishing and neighborhood uses. Point, encourage harbor development. Subpoint, plan for traffic and additional parking needs from increased harbor usage. Other subpoint, use caution so as not to lose our character and identity. Furthermore, 2 recent attempts to rezone this MI district failed in the face of significant community opposition. Quoting from correspondence from legal counsel during the last rezoning attempt, other than uses allowed by right, quote, all other uses are allowed only by special permit, thus requiring a finding by the City Council that the use will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance, and that it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of said use. Again, with reference to correspondence from legal counsel during the last rezoning attempt, discussing the rejection of spot zoning, the Massachusetts Appeals Court remarked, what is striking about the record is the absence of analysis of land use planning consideration by municipal authorities. Among the considerations to be taken into account are the physical characteristics of the land, its location, size, and the nature of adjoining uses. Had there been a change in land use patterns in the general neighborhood of which the zoning code ought to take account, such a trend would justify a zoning change. Thus, in view of the lack of a land use study and the illogic of the ostensible reason for this rezoning, it is not to be wondered at that the land court judge found those reasons to be pretexts.
60 seconds, okay?
The city's general counsel then opined to the city council as to whether an overlay district for the Bird's Eye site would be considered spot zoning, listing several factors and summarizing that a change must serve a public purpose as opposed to merely economically benefiting a property owner. The city's general counsel also wrote, if the PUD also applied to other parcels of land and the purpose was to promote economic development for the community or neighborhood, then the specter of spot zoning would not be as obvious. The present MI zoning explicitly excludes hotels. A hotel is a conflicting use, yet here we are debating whether to radically alter 2 acres to allow a use that will encroach upon existing companies that in good faith have relied upon the local laws to encourage and protect their interests. Looking ahead a few years, the city and MAPC and EDA recently sponsored a Marine Industrial Summit and were pleasantly surprised to learn there's a bright future for Gloucester to build upon its fishing heritage. Now is not the time, and this is not the place to undo centuries of growth, decades of survival, and years of community planning for a better tomorrow. Now is the time to trust in established businesses, to redouble support of maritime opportunities, and to stand strong for the development of the right kind, in the right place. Please, clean your lens and see what is the clear choice for this community's well-being. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Christine Silverstein, and I'm an out-of-towner. I live at 5 Moores End Lane on Nantucket Island. I've been there for 22 years. While I was on Nantucket, during my tenure there, I served on the Nantucket Economic and Development Planning Commission. I also helped to rewrite several large sections of our harbor plan to help protect our very fragile scallop fishery there. And so I'm here visiting family right now, and I heard about this meeting, and I've been listening with great interest, obviously. And I'm here to offer my condolences in a way to this body, because you've got you're under a great deal of pressure in making this decision. I have to say that 3 years ago, Nantucket lost its last working waterfront piece of property. You may have heard about it. Something called the Great Harbor Yacht Club was built, where our only boatyard on the water existed after Mr. Beinecke came to town in the 70s and decided to clean up the sort of unsightly situation on our harbor. And I think people probably spoke about the possibilities of what you've heard people call a domino effect. But that actually happened in the town that I live in. You know, the sort of seduction of economic development by bringing tourism to a new level was not so carefully considered when it started. So the train kind of flew down the tracks. And so I hope that, it sounds like you're at the beginning of courting that kind of tourism here. And, you know, obviously it does bring a certain, you know, economic upgrade, but you don't want to upgrade your town out of its own identity and its own existence, and you don't want to take industries that actually are doing very well here and could use your support and undermine them and lose them. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of perspective from a place that I live where people probably do regret some of the decisions that they made. And also, people who come and purchase property on the waterfront for large sums of money without knowing that they have the right to do what they plan to do always interest me, because, and we have sort of a motto on Nantucket: ownership is half the battle. So as soon as someone owns something big and important and expensive, since they own it, they can somehow pressure the permitting bodies to let them do something with it. And they often will hire, as they did in Nantucket, very well-liked and well-loved and well-respected local attorneys to help them to do that. So, you know, and it's a technique, and it works often, and it's, you know, I'm not disparaging it, but it is what happens. So I just hope you're very careful in considering this. I don't think that, it sounds like a hotel on Main Street or some other place that's even more in the bowels of your retail and restaurant world would be much better, and supporting and growing the fort as a commercial, industrial, marine area, and that authenticity and preserving it would be a wonderful thing to do. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Dick Belair, and I live on 6 Forest Street in Gloucester. I come before you tonight trying to make sense of a set of values. Mr. Davis is a main stake in the fray with which we find ourselves involved. He has made all this possible and also necessary. He holds the money card. You hold the verdict. I see these plans and have to ask, a hotel, really? Why a hotel? Why such a short-sighted vision? Why leave a legacy of disruption within a community, one that polarizes so many people so markedly? Surely other struggling resorts and motels and hotels will welcome some competition. Surely with gas prices climbing every week, one might question if there's an increase in traffic coming over the bridge. Surely those folks who can afford to pay the prices for their stay in this luxurious, modern, state-of-the-art complex won't mind the smell from the fishing industry, will they? I mean, come on, at least a few short months when the business would likely flourish, right? This all seems like a tough pill to swallow, for even sugar from the main sugar daddy won't help the medicine go down with this one. I recommend a second opinion, for to allow tax revenue generated from something, anything along the harbor, is certainly below its full potential. Do the research, folks. Not far from here are communities that took that route and wish they hadn't done so. They found tourism was not enough to sustain those communities' businesses, and shops are struggling to stay alive, while the promise of jobs left many without them. The opportunity to use this gentleman's money is wonderful. We are, however, at a precipice in our city, our state, and in our world. Mr. Davis, take a look at the heritage that built this city and your part with leaving something of value for everyone. Go get worldly with your vision. Put your money into creating good for all mankind. Go connect with colleges and universities and create an ocean research facility. with wave and tidal energy study and development programs, an ocean fishery for hatching young brood before returning them to the open water, even a shipbuilding industry. There are so many more opportunities for a deep water harbor, rich with a proud heritage, and a community with a concern for its welfare, its prestige, and its survival. The question is one of balance from several viewpoints. You could put your name onto something that will cite Gloucester as a mecca of futuristic innovation. You could put your philanthropic pursuits towards the betterment of the Earth's seas. Many of us as a community do not see this hotel as a source of the jobs for which some have spoken. The criteria for the jobs may not play out and will still be as likely in another part of the city. You besiege the fort and we stand ready to protect it. Your efforts will polarize and split the community with the proposal before us. Although some say that our city is opposed to growth, many of us see another hotel as an improper development in a wrong place. The harbor area is a precious gem. Once taken for a venture such as this proposal, is at best a seasonal hooray and always a harbor horror. So people, we have to fight because we have a fight on our hands. When we could welcome a more promising use of Pavilion Beach, instead, we need to ask for your help in defending and holding the fort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. We're going to use the small one, okay?
Hello. I've seen some people hold it too close and some people hold it too far, so I just want to check. My name is Jim Tarantino. I think most people know me, and I'm a Fort resident. And even though I think I'm a pretty good talker, I'm shaking a little nervous like my wife. But and I got a lot of chicken scratches. But I'm going to address you as I usually do, speaking from the heart. I know Mr. Toby wants to eliminate emotion, but there's a value here that nobody really discusses that we really need to take into consideration, and that's the value of the community. I look around and I see tonight my cousin Steve, our fire chief, a strong character that is a leader in the community. I see the also supporting us is the commander of our local Coast Guard station, Chad Johnson, who down the fort I used to get in a headlock and give him noogies and say, "You're going to be a tough fort kid." And that strength of character that is in our community, and I can go right around the board here and tell personal, deep relationships and strength of the community with council members' families. I watch you and your daughters interact in the thing, and the strength of character that a working waterfront builds is priceless. That's a value. You can't put a price tag. I know you want numbers. And believe me, in the next couple of weeks, we've gotten good at defending us. We're bringing in some people that, as you've seen, have made some legitimate points here tonight. We're going to make it clear, numbers-wise, that pursuing marine industrial uses, as the experts advised, and as you yourselves enforced for many years, is the only real path for Gloucester. We need to protect what little we have left, and that's the strength of character that goes with it. That once you lose that working waterfront, you know what, let me speak, because I get tongue-tied. I'll speak, our forebears said it best, because I've been able to quote him, because it makes so much sense when Roger Babson employed unemployed stonecutters during the Depression and made them go into Dogtown and carve in the virtues of what Gloucester should be. When work stops, values decay. All right? Charles Olson said it best. One of the lines in his poem was, "I hate those that take away and do not have as good to offer. I hate them." And he disowned Gloucester when he saw what was happening. I honestly believe that there's been an agenda set and a path that they've chosen. And the only way I felt that I can change that path is by drawing a lot of attention to what's going on here. And I'm doing the best that I can to do that. Because I think in the deep hearts of the people in this community, because you are part of the community, Savathia's brother Matza saved the West End from heroin addiction hanging out there. He's his strength of character that the working waterfront produces says, no, that's not going to happen in my neighborhood. And he cleaned up single-handedly the West End for a period of decade. I could go on and on. Mr. Shalino's nieces and nephews, Rowan Lido at Turningside, Frankie and Joey coming out to support the Dory Committee, something that I've asked the mayor to do in her tenure and still hasn't attended an international Dory race and met the mayor of Lunenburg. That's important. She needs to be part of that. That's what Gloucester is. And if you take away that from us, that's going to be your legacy. You're going to be the ones that said, yeah, because I believe in your heart of hearts, you know the right path. It's obvious, and we're going to make it obvious with documented proof over the next couple of weeks. We're going to do what the city should have done. I walked myself just down Commercial Street alone, and I'm just a dumb kid from the fort. And I asked Monty at Intershell, Monty, what happened to that most innovative product you got at the Boston Seafood Show 2 years ago, Seafood Naturals? He says, you know what? I've done the homework. It's going to cost me $250,000 to invest in it. I want to do it. I'm not sure if I can. I said, what if you got a little subsidy and a little help and some kids from a college to help with R&D? He said to me, now you got me excited. Why do I have to do that? Isn't that the job of our city? Listen, before it gets too late, because the path is already set, and everybody, and congratulations to the PR department who's done a good job of narrowing the focus, like it's just about the fort or it's just about that one property. We know there's bigger things. Nobody's talking about the many properties that Beauport are buying. We got to think what the whole plan is, okay? Because that's an effect of what you guys are going to do here. You do have a monumental task, because I believe that you're going to have to change course from what's already been set. But you're going to do it for the best of the city, not the few that will profit the most from it. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. Clifford Adams, 14 CL Street. I've only been in Gloucester for 75 years. And I've sat here this evening and I've listened to high-end attorneys, to common folk like myself that lived here all these years. I have a couple of things I'd like maybe somebody can fill me in on. One of them is, if there is if somebody that is permitted already for a couple of years, why is not the hotel already been built? And secondly, is where are all these marine-related resources and companies and high-tech businesses? Then I don't see them flocking in down on the docks. Maybe somebody can tell me about that.
So, folks, we're up against the 10:30 hour here. And at this point, I believe that we've had an exhaustive discussion. I broke my first rule when we started this meeting, saying that people are going to have equal time, and we spent 90 minutes for the proponents and 2 hours for the opponents. And so I hope that that's appreciated. I'm going to accept a motion to continue this meeting to our March 15th public hearing, and we can continue this discussion and offer an opportunity for rebuttals at that point.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion and seconded. Thank you, Mary. All in favor? All right, so we're going to continue. Oh, okay. I'll accept the motion to adjourn this meeting. Cross that bridge when we get to it. Motion to adjourn. Thank you. Thank you.